The moment you stop chasing her, something strange begins to happen. She starts to feel your absence. Not because you disappeared to play games, not because you became cold, but because for the first time, your energy is no longer begging to be noticed. And that silence speaks louder than every message you ever sent. Most men lose respect not because they love too much, but because they forget themselves while trying to be chosen. They reply too fast, explain too much, forgive too easily. And slowly, the woman they wanted begins to see them as predictable. But a man who stops chasing becomes dangerous in a quiet way, because he no longer asks, "Do you want me?" He asks himself, "Do I still respect who I am becoming?" Hello everyone, welcome to the Magnetic Masculinity channel. In this video, you will discover why the less you chase, the more she starts to respect your presence, your silence, and your self-worth. Now let's get started. Part 1. Respect begins, where desperation ends. Most men believe that the more attention they give a woman, the more she will value them. It sounds reasonable. If you care, you show it. If you love someone, you fight for them. If you want a relationship to work, you keep proving yourself. But life has a strange way of exposing the difference between love and desperation. The truth is, people rarely respect what they never have the chance to lose. When a man is always available, always waiting, always saying yes, he slowly stops becoming a mystery. His presence becomes expected instead of appreciated. This doesn't happen because he's kind. It happens because he quietly teaches others that his time, his attention, and even his dignity are unlimited. And what costs nothing is often treated as if it is worth nothing. Many men don't realize the moment they begin losing respect. It isn't when she stops texting first. It isn't when she cancels a date. It begins much earlier. It begins the moment he starts abandoning himself just to keep someone else interested. He says yes when he wants to say no. He apologizes for things that aren't his fault. He changes his opinions just to avoid conflict. Little by little, he sends one silent message. My happiness depends on whether you choose me. That message is never spoken aloud, but people can feel it. Confidence is rarely heard. Neediness is rarely hidden. A woman may appreciate kindness, but she instinctively notices whether that kindness comes from strength or from fear. Strength says, I choose to give. Fear whispers, please don't leave. And those two energies create completely different reactions. Real respect is born when a man no longer tries to convince someone of his value. He simply lives in a way that reflects it. The moment your life stops revolving around earning someone's approval, something changes inside you. You become calmer, more grounded, less reactive, and without saying a single word, people begin to notice the one thing that can never be faked: self-respect. Part 2. The power of walking away. One of the greatest misconceptions about attraction is that it grows through constant pursuit. In reality, attraction often grows in the space where certainty disappears. Think about the people who have left the deepest mark on your life. Were they the ones who demanded your attention every hour? Or were they the ones who had a life so meaningful that their absence made you wonder? Human nature is curious. We notice what suddenly becomes quiet. We think about what is no longer trying to convince us. This is why a man who constantly seeks validation slowly becomes invisible. His effort is no longer seen as confidence. It becomes expectation. And expectations rarely create appreciation. But the moment he begins to walk his own path, everything changes. Not because he is trying to trigger jealousy, not because he wants revenge, but because his attention has finally returned to the one person who needed it the most: himself. A man who values his own time stops checking his phone every few minutes. He doesn't rearrange his entire schedule for someone who isn't doing the same for him. He no longer measures his worth by how quickly someone replies. Instead, he invests that energy into becoming stronger, wiser, healthier, and more fulfilled. Something remarkable happens when a man stops making another person the center of his world. His emotions become steady, his decisions become clearer, his conversations become more genuine because they are no longer driven by fear of losing someone. Ironically, this is often the moment when people begin paying closer attention to him, not because he became distant, but because he stopped chasing approval. There is a quiet confidence in people who know they can walk away without hatred. They don't threaten. They don't beg. They don't perform. They simply understand that no relationship is worth sacrificing their dignity. And dignity has a magnetic quality. It cannot be bought. It cannot be imitated. It can only be earned through the difficult decision to choose self-respect over temporary comfort. Many women may not consciously think, "He stopped chasing me." Instead, they notice something far more powerful. They notice a man who no longer looks emotionally dependent, a man whose happiness doesn't rise and fall with someone else's attention. That kind of emotional stability creates trust. It creates curiosity. And above all, it creates respect. Because the strongest person in any relationship is never the one who controls the other. It is the one who has learned to control himself. And once you master that, you no longer chase. You simply become someone worth chasing. Before we continue, take a moment to ask yourself one honest question. Have you ever lost yourself trying to keep someone else? If even one part of this story speaks to your experience, leave a simple "I choose myself" in the comments below. Not to prove anything to anyone, but as a promise to the person you see in the mirror every day. And if you're looking for timeless lessons on confidence, self-respect, emotional strength, and stoic wisdom that can transform the way you live and love, make sure to subscribe and join this journey. Now, let's continue, because the next lesson may completely change the way you see attraction and yourself. Part 3. The man she respects is the man who doesn't need to be chosen. There comes a moment in every man's life when he must answer one uncomfortable question. Am I loving this person, or am I simply afraid of being alone? At first, the difference is almost impossible to see. Both make you call. Both make you wait. Both make you think about her before you think about yourself. But over time, one builds your life. The other quietly destroys it. A man who fears loneliness begins making decisions from scarcity. He tolerates disrespect because he believes he won't find someone else. He accepts mixed signals because uncertainty feels better than being alone. He lowers his standards, silences his instincts, and convinces himself that patience will eventually earn him love. But respect can never grow where self-abandonment becomes a habit. The more you negotiate your own boundaries, the more invisible those boundaries become. People don't learn how to value you by listening to your words. They learn by watching what you allow. Every time you ignore behavior that hurts your peace, you silently teach others that your peace is negotiable. Every time you chase someone who keeps walking away, you send another message. I'll keep running, even if you never stop. Eventually, they stop turning around. Not because you're unworthy, but because you've made the pursuit one-sided. And nothing loses its value faster than something that is always available, regardless of how it is treated. This is why emotionally mature men rarely spend their lives convincing people to stay. They understand a simple truth. The right connection never requires you to constantly audition for a place in someone's heart. Real love doesn't ask you to become smaller. It asks you to become more authentic. When a woman meets a man who is genuinely at peace with himself, she notices something different. He listens more than he speaks. He doesn't interrupt silence because silence doesn't make him uncomfortable. He doesn't panic when plans change. He doesn't seek reassurance every time the conversation slows down. His confidence isn't loud, it's steady. His attention feels valuable because it is intentional, not unlimited. He chooses carefully where his energy goes. And because he can enjoy life without depending on anyone's approval, every moment he shares with someone becomes a choice, not a necessity. That is where true attraction begins. Not in perfect words, not in expensive gifts, not in endless effort, but in emotional freedom. Because nothing is more attractive than a man who enjoys someone's presence, yet never loses himself in the process. The greatest shift happens when you stop asking, "How do I make her respect me?" and start asking, Am I living in a way that deserves my own respect? The answer to that question changes everything. Because once a man becomes proud of the life he is building, he no longer fears rejection. He no longer begs for attention. He no longer competes for affection. He simply keeps walking forward. And the people who truly belong in his life will naturally choose to walk beside him. Part 4. She begins to respect you the moment you stop trying to control the outcome. One of the quietest forms of strength is accepting that you cannot make someone love you. You cannot force admiration. You cannot negotiate attraction. And you certainly cannot earn genuine respect by sacrificing your own peace. Yet countless men spend years trying. They analyze every message. They replay every conversation. They search for the perfect words, the perfect timing, the perfect version of themselves. As if love were a puzzle waiting to be solved. But the harder they chase certainty, the further certainty slips away. Because people can sense when your actions are driven by fear instead of purpose. Fear is exhausting, not only for the person who carries it, but also for the person standing across from it. When every conversation feels like a hidden test, when every silence demands reassurance, when every disagreement becomes a crisis, the relationship slowly turns into emotional labor instead of emotional peace. And peace is what emotionally mature people value the most. This is why the strongest man in the room is rarely the loudest. He is the one who remains calm when life refuses to follow his plans. He understands that not every connection is meant to last. Not every goodbye is a tragedy. Not every rejection is a loss. Sometimes rejection is simply life removing the people who were never meant to walk your path. Once you truly accept that, something extraordinary happens. You stop trying to control what others think of you. You stop chasing explanations. You stop losing sleep over delayed replies or changing emotions. Instead, you ask a different question. Did I act with integrity? If the answer is yes, you let go. That doesn't mean you stop caring. It means your self-worth is no longer tied to someone else's decision. And that kind of emotional independence is incredibly rare. A woman may not always be able to explain why she feels different around a man like this, but she notices it. She notices that he doesn't panic when she needs space. He doesn't become cold to punish her. He doesn't shower her with attention to pull her back. He simply remains consistent, grounded, emotionally steady. There is something deeply reassuring about a person who doesn't change their character every time life becomes uncertain. Because consistency creates trust, and trust creates respect. Ironically, the less attached you become to controlling the outcome, the more authentic every interaction becomes. You smile because you genuinely feel joy. You give because generosity reflects your character. You love because love aligns with your values, not because you're secretly hoping for a reward. That is the difference between a man seeking validation. Part 5. The greatest victory is becoming the man you were looking for. At the beginning of this journey, you probably believed this video was about making a woman respect you. But if you've listened carefully, you'll realize it was never really about her. It was always about you. Because the moment a man builds his life around someone else's approval, he hands away the very thing that makes him attractive: his freedom. The tragedy is that most men don't notice it happening. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens one compromise at a time. One unanswered boundary. One apology that wasn't necessary. One dream postponed. One opportunity ignored. One piece of self-respect quietly traded for the hope that someone might finally choose them. Years pass, and one day they wake up living a life they never intended to create. Not because they loved too much, but because they forgot to love themselves along the way. Life has a way of teaching difficult lessons. Sometimes the relationship ends. Sometimes she walks away. Sometimes she chooses someone else. And in those painful moments, many men ask, "What did I do wrong?" But perhaps the better question is, what did I stop doing for myself? Did you stop growing? Did you stop protecting your peace? Did you stop chasing your purpose because you were too busy chasing another person? Those questions hurt, but honest questions often do. The truth is, no healthy relationship asks you to abandon your identity. Real love should inspire your growth, not replace it. It should make your life richer, not become your entire life. The strongest men understand something that experience teaches better than words ever can. People come, people go. Feelings rise, feelings fade, circumstances change. But the relationship you have with yourself follows you every single day of your life. That relationship deserves your greatest investment. Build your mind, strengthen your body, protect your values, develop your discipline. Create a life that makes you excited to wake up each morning, whether someone is standing beside you or not. Because confidence is not built when everyone applauds you. It is built during the quiet seasons, when nobody is watching, and you continue showing up anyway. Ironically, this is often the moment your relationships begin to change. Not because you've learned some secret technique, not because you've mastered manipulation, but because people naturally feel the difference. Your conversations become calmer. Your decisions become clearer. Your presence becomes lighter. You stop trying to impress. You stop trying to convince. You stop trying to be enough for everyone. And for the first time, you become enough for yourself. That quiet transformation is impossible to fake. It can be seen in your posture. It can be heard in your voice. It can be felt in your silence. Some people will admire it. Some will misunderstand it. Some may even walk away because they can no longer control the version of you that once depended on their approval. Conclusion. The greatest lesson isn't that chasing less makes her respect you more. It's that the moment you stop chasing validation, you finally begin to respect yourself. And that changes everything. Because true confidence doesn't come from being admired. It comes from knowing who you are, standing by your values, and refusing to lose yourself for anyone. So here's the lesson to carry with you today. Love sincerely, but never abandon your purpose. Choose people who choose you, and never build your life around someone else's approval. When you become the man who values his own peace, respect is no longer something you seek. It naturally follows. If this video spoke to you, take a moment to subscribe and become part of this community. Together, we'll continue exploring timeless lessons on stoicism, emotional strength, discipline, and self-mastery, helping you become a wiser, calmer, and stronger version of yourself. Thank you for taking the time to watch until the end of the video. See you in the next videos.